The best quarterback, I think, for the NFL draft is Ty Simpson. Compared to Fernando Mendoza, these are two high-level quarterbacks that are playing some fantastic football. And I think these two are going to be the top two names that really go to head-to-head when we're talking about the combine and all the way up to April. If you really want to go down the Anthony Richardson path, maybe a Lenora Sellers, but I think he's going to be a late first-round pick that you stash away for a year and you hope you could develop him. That's if he was to go to the NFL draft. Dante Moore, I think, is a solid quarterback. Now, there's some red flags with him. I clearly do feel like it's going to be Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson. Those are going to be the top two guys that are fighting for the number one overall pick. And with that in mind, what are the differences between the two? Now, Mendoza, I could argue, makes the prettiest deep ball in the entire class with the incredible back shoulder fade. He's highly accurate. I think you could compare Fernando Mendoza to a Jared Goff, a more refined Jared Goff coming out of school. Funny enough, they both went to Cal. Now, in this Indiana offense, he's been highly efficient. He's been incredibly accurate. It does look a little bit more consistent than what we saw against Cal, more for the fact that Indiana's offense is a little bit more on the simplistic side. I think he could run a Kyle Shanahan offense at a very, very high level. But I do think there is some limitations with the Mendoza. His arm talent is pretty good. I think the accuracy is great. There's some questions on whether or not he's as mobile, which goes to the Jared Goff comparison. I think he's a good prospect. And I think if you got him for a franchise quarterback, you'd be pretty happy. And one thing he does have over a guy like Ty Simpson is he's got a couple of years starting. At the end of the day, I think Ty Simpson will be the number one overall pick this upcoming April. I think he's the best quarterback in this draft, and he's playing at an extremely high level. Now, there's a couple of things to note with Ty Simpson. I think the accuracy, the arm talent, and the mobility, that combination isn't like a world beater. I'm not talking about a one-of-one athlete here, but the combination that he has presents a lot of unique challenges. As you are going to be investing a high-level pick to him, I would feel pretty confident about getting a guy like Ty Simpson. Now, one of the cons that I do get a little bit worried about as you begin to evaluate players more and more, especially in my lifetime, I do get a little bit worried about guys that do not have a ton of starts. And he's a first-year starter. And it took him a while to get those starts. Now, I respect the patience, and as someone that has never met Ty Simpson, I don't know his personality, I can respect a guy being someone in this era of college football to stay around and stick it out. And I think he has played incredibly well, knowing that they don't even have a rushing attack at Alabama, knowing the inconsistencies with the offensive line. There's moments of pure brilliance. Now, I'm not going to go as far to say where I've seen some people compare him to like Joe Burrow in terms of the high level QB play that we're seeing. But this is a dude that is just a robot in the pocket, creates, extends, and you just know, even if it's a 3rd and 8, a 3rd and 13, with how well Alabama is playing, that he could go make a play. We saw it all over this Georgia game, and they went on a 4-game stretch of 4 straight ranked opponents, and he did not have the greatest first half against South Carolina this past weekend, but in that second half, when you needed to go get points, he was able to go get the job done. Now, I do think these are going to be two guys that we're going to be comparing a ton. And I do think as of right now, if the draft was tomorrow, I think Ty Simpson is the better quarterback, the better prospect. Is there some red flags with him? Is he a one-of-one talent? No. Is he going to be one of the best number one overall picks that we've seen over the past 20 years? No. But I would feel pretty confident about him being my franchise quarterback, and he'd be worth the number one overall selection. Pardon me, guys. We're getting a little bit of parched, a little dehydrated, if you will. Running back is pretty self-explanatory here. I think Jeremiah Love is the best running back in college football and easily the best prospect coming up for this NFL draft. This dude has everything you could be looking for in a running back prospect: the breakaway speed, the contact balance, the size, the receiving threat. This is one of my favorite prospects in the entire draft. And because he's a running back, he may become a little bit undervalued. And if I'm the Chicago Bears, we don't do a lot of NFL draft talk, and I'm not here to do that. I'm here to talk about the prospects, and maybe we'll talk about their fits down the line. But if I'm the Bears and I got DeAndre Swift, Kyle Monaghan, and I could go get a Jeremiah Love, I would drop a bag to make sure I go get him. He's going to be one of those running backs that transforms a rushing attack. I think he's one that could be the engine of an offense. If you need him to be the bell cow, he can. If you want him to be a complimentary back that could go bruise for the first couple of drives, he can go do that. This is a running back that I think should be worth at least a top 15 pick. I really struggle to see some flaws. Now, is there this incredible stop and go agility that you could see from maybe, I don't know, Bijan Robinson and many other kind of compacted running backs? I think Bucky Irving is a great example. No, I think there's some lateral concerns with him, but at the end of the day, I mean, I'm seeing some ridiculous stuff on tape. The hurdles, if there's one thing I would tell him, you don't need to hurdle everybody. It doesn't have to be a hurdle every single time. But Jeremiah Love is a freak athlete, and he's everything you could be asking for in a prospect. For wide receiver, we're going to do two guys just because it tends to be a loaded room. I would say Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State has just absolutely excelled and continued to improve year in, year out. It's unfortunate he's been dealing with injuries. So is Sam Levitt. Arizona State is a very good team. I just think being banged up and losing a guy like Cam Scatabo, which, by the way, hope he's doing well, hope he's doing better. I think Jordan Tyson is everything you could be asking for in a number one wide receiver. He could win on the outside. He could win on the inside. The routes are beautiful. His ability to make plays after the catch. He's everything you could ask for in an X receiver. I think he could be a top 10 pick. I think he's a guy that could transform a passing attack if you have a competent enough quarterback. He's going to do virtually everything that you want from an X receiver. Now, the wide receiver, too, that I love the most is Mekhi Lemon, former 5-star out of USC. Out of him and Jacoby Lane, I lean towards Mekhi Lemon. Mekhi Lemon is lightning in a bottle. The dude is just pure athleticism, and he plays bigger than his size. His routes are incredible. I would argue he's probably the best route runner in his class. There's plenty of other great guys like Carnell Tate, who this wide receiver class in general, I think is vastly underrated. I think there's going to be plenty of 1,000-yard wide receivers or all-purpose yard wide receivers within this class. Jordan Tyson also being a fantastic route runner as well. But Mekhi Lemon, man, he's like a Juice Doug Baldwin. He just plays bigger than his frame, incredible routes, is able to go get the ball, and if you get him out in space, it could be a touchdown. I think he is incredible. Like, you could compare him to Zay Flowers if you wanted to. I think Mekhi Lemon is going to be a steal for whatever team gets him, more than likely in the later half of the first round, just solely off of his size. And frankly, I don't care. Go get me a good ball player. At tight end is a draft darling for many people, Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. This is a do-it-all tight end. I think the hype with him has slowly backed off. I mean, I've seen mock drafts put him at top 5. I don't see a tight end going in the top 5, but this is a dude that is an incredible athlete, can make a ton of different plays into space, a nuanced route runner. He's one of those guys that has just bursted onto the scene as the tight end group going into the season was seen as wide open in terms of who is going to really take over that position group. We thought potentially a guy like Eli Stowers and many others, but I think Kenyon Sadiq has firmly become the number one tight end in this class. I think he's going to test well, and I think he is going to be the first tight end off the board. For offensive tackle, Spencer Fanu is just remarkable in his tape. If you want to go get teach tape, true, understand what it means to be an offensive tackle that can go maul a guy in run blocking, go watch his tape. It is art. It is cinema. If you are someone that enjoys watching good football, Spencer Fanu out in space is an incredible work of art in terms of offensive lineman. And I think he is the safest floor. I think you could potentially bump him into guard if you need him to. Now, there's some incredibly large offensive tackles in this class. I mean, we're talking Francis Mauigoa. You could throw in the kid out at Caden Proctor, and Caden Proctor is ridiculous, but I worry they could potentially be like an Evan Neal clone. I think Spencer Fanu is a safe pick, and he's going to be a top 10 selection. And then interior offensive lineman, I'm with Caden Green out of Mizzou, hyper athletic, physical, especially in the interior. I think the interior, you could think of Connor Lew as well out of Auburn. There's a couple of different guys. I know there's a Penn State kid that I have not been able to watch up to this point. I think the interior, there's some offensive tackles that could bump into the interior. It's going to be a very flexible draft in terms of guys that could be potentially bumped to the inside for the NFL draft. But just to run things through, my number one quarterback is Ty Simpson. My running back one is going to be Jeremiah Smith. Wide receiver 1 is Jordan Tyson. Wide receiver 2 is Mekhi Lemon. Tight end is going to be Kenyon Sadiq. Offensive tackle is going to be Spencer Fanu. And interior offensive lineman is going to be Caden Green.